Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Jai Gurudev. So we'll run through the index once again till we go to the 17th or 18th verse. So we first saw the synopsis of the first three chapters, then the origins of Karma Yoga, from teacher to student, the Sampradaya, self-knowledge does not go away, two types of eternity. Self-knowledge does not go away because that is what it is. That is the truth, and that stays. Two types of eternity. Self-knowledge is the greatest secret. The knowledge should only be given to one who wants to know. An objective opinion is always helpful. Should Vedanta be taught to everyone? The cause of birth for the jiva. Omniscience does not require a mind. An understanding of avatara. Empirical reality, subjective reality. Vyavaharika and pratibhasika satya. The relationship among the three orders of reality. The empirical reality of a jiva's birth. The reality of Krishna's birth. Why does Ishvara assume a physical body? An avatara is like an actor. When does Ishvara assume a body? Adharma is the real cause for the destruction of dharma. How can dharma be re-established? People are culture and religion. Is it time for Ishvara to come again? What happens to the jnani after death? The nature of fear, the nature of anger, the vision of non-difference between Ishvara and Jiva, relative and absolute Shuddhi. The pursuit of knowledge is the primary tapas. Does everyone come back to Ishvara? As you sow, so shall you reap. There is no pagan's prayer. There is only prayer. Even those not connected to religion are blessed. Everyone wants to be free from feeling small. The spiritual path need not be arduous. It's a matter of understanding, not a matter of achieving. All matter is Bhagavan alone. How you invoke the Lord is your choice. People want immediate results. Is the Lord really impartial? Has God himself said we must follow him? The nature of the gunas. The four groups of people according to guna. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam. Guna karma vibhagashaha. Tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. Vidhi akartaram avyayam. The universality of the fourfold visions, whether it's in India or in the other parts of the world. Duty-based division among people. Karma yoga and a duty-based society. Superiority is determined by one's maturity, not duty. Duties may change, but qualities do not. So the inner quality that you have, whether it is sattva, rajas, tamas, or is it tamas, rajas, sattva, that would not. That would be there. Krishna is doer and non-doer. Know yourself to be a non-doer. Having the knowledge does not preclude action. Inaction never leads to liberation. All understanding ends up in Atma. Another description of a wise person. What was that? Seeing action in inaction and inaction in action. This is not literally, but it was meant to be with reference to. Inaction in action. The results of action belong to the doer. Not doing karma also requires a doer. Mistaking action for inaction and inaction for action. Action is dependent upon Atma. The nature of Atma. The doer is I, but I is not the doer. The one who sees things as they are has wisdom. Samsara is centered on doership. Samsara is an ocean. Inaction is not the absence of action. The original sin is ignorance. Samsara is the orbit of action and result. How to get out of the orbit of samsara? The definition of mithya and satya. I'm neither the doer nor the enjoyer. Definition of ego. Surrender is an attitude. So we'll stop here. We went way beyond our shloka. So we go back to. So we saw this yesterday. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha, akarmanascha bodhavyam, kahana karmano gatihi. So action is also. So action is to be known, as also inaction is to be known. Inaction or actionlessness. So action is also to be known. Forbidden action and actionlessness must also be known. This is because The nature of karma is difficult to understand. Karmanyah karmayah paschet, akarmani cha karmayah, sa buddhiman manushyeshu, sayukta kritsna karma krita. The one who sees actionlessness in action and action in actionlessness is wise among human beings. That person is a yogi who has done everything that is to be done. I thought we will do this again today, right? Because it's a long verse. We'll start from the beginning. So the one, Shankara writes an extensive commentary, Bhashya, on this verse, setting out the various arguments that are relevant to this important topic. In order to gain a clear understanding of karma and akarma, we will look into this particular Bhashya in some detail. It was said that even the informed are deluded with reference to the nature of action and inaction. Karma here means action in general and is not restricted to scripturally enjoined rituals as it is elsewhere in the Gita. Because even the learned are confused, Krishna says he would reveal to Arjuna the nature of karma, which implies akarma also, knowing which he would be liberated from doubt, from samsara. What is to be done and what is not to be done are both considered to be karma, action. Killing, for example, and helping someone are two different actions. Killing is a prohibited action, nishiddha karma, and helping another person is an enjoined karma, vihita karma. A command, vidhi, is always with reference to an action, either to do it or not to do it. Because one may hurt another, the Shruti enjoins us not to hurt anyone. May one not drink alcohol and may one not eat meat are also scriptural injunctions or don'ts with reference to the actions one performs. Similarly, there are a number of commands concerning the do's, the actions that are to be done. Thus, there is a list of do's and don'ts for people to follow, all of which are karma. So, karma is what? What is to be done and what is not to be done. Both are considered to be karma. That is why we have the nishiddha karma, that is prohibited action, and vihita karma, the list of do's. Akarma is also to be understood in terms of karma. Is akarma simply not doing action, or is it something more? The very nature of action, its svarupa, is what we are trying to understand here. Only when action is properly understood can one understand what non-action or the absence of action is. Only when action is properly understood can one understand what non-action or the absence of action is. People generally understand the absence of action as not doing action. If you do not do anything, if you do not do something, this non-performance is the absence of action. Example here was the man standing When a man who is walking stops walking, the action of walking has stopped. There is a standstill, no action. But standing still is also an action. Try standing still and you will understand how difficult an action it is. Similarly, sitting still is an action, which is why you cannot do it for very long. To think that you're going to gain inaction by sitting still is to be deluded. You're fooling yourself. There is no such inaction in fact. To think that not performing action is inaction is no different than thinking that printing more currency will resolve a country's tight money situation. Such a simplistic approach cannot solve the problem and will create additional problems because it is not that easy. Similarly, to understand inaction is not as easy as it seems. What Krishna says in this verse is in keeping with what he had said earlier in the second, third, and fourth chapters. Although the present verse is very cryptic, it can be understood by keeping in mind what has gone before. Another description of a wise person. Here, Krishna describes a person who could see inaction in action and action in inaction. What kind of a person is this? If he or she sees a man walking, does the person see him as standing still? And if he is standing still, does the person see him as walking? This is like watching someone eating and having the person tell you he or she is not eating at all. Usually, we would think that such a person was mentally deranged in some way. But here, Krishna says that one who sees action in inaction and inaction in action is a wise person, buddhiman. Then, to top off the confusion, Krishna goes on to say that such a person is a Krishna karma krita, someone who has done everything that is to be done. This means that there is nothing more for this person to do. He or she is free, whereas for others there remains a long list of to be dones and not to be dones. But is this the actual meaning? Is what we will see. So this is certainly not what is meant to be seeing action in inaction and completing Kritsna Karma Krit. This list, as long as it exists, is unending because the items to be done and not to be done are difficult to fulfill. What you ought to do is not always possible to do, nor can you always avoid doing or saying what is not to be done or said. Also, the to be dones and not to be dones go on increasing. With reference to the food one eats or personal ambitions, for example, there are a number of things to be done and not to be done. Like this, everyone has a long list, and even if some of the items are fulfilled, so many others pop up in their place. Some items on the list are very clear to you, while others may be vague. Still, they are there below the surface and will become clearer in time, like a Polaroid film. This then is the situation for everyone. So actions will never end. To be done, not to be done are eternal. So completing the to-do list is not the definition, not the actual definition of a wise person. So here Krishna describes the person who has managed to fulfill all the items on the list as being one able to see action in inaction and inaction, inaction. He praises such a person and refers to him or her as being wise, buddhiman. If seeing is all that one has to do to be wise, the seeing itself must be very difficult. The words themselves reveal the difficulty. How can I see action in inaction and inaction, 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 inaction? The usual locative case meaning for the word in the expressions inaction, inaction, and action in inaction does not apply here. When we say, where is he sitting? The response, on the ground, denotes a location where the action of sitting is taking place. Similarly is the case with the statement, the book is in my hand, is in my hand. However, here Shankara dismisses any sense of location with reference to action and inaction, saying that action cannot become the location or the basis for inaction. How astute Shankara should have been to have picked up this thing and give this as part of the explanation. So it is not the usual locative sense, but it is with reference to. Inaction being the absence of action, it is not there to be located upon action. Inaction does not exist. We cannot say that a non-existent inaction sits upon action, just as we cannot talk about the horns that sit on our heads. Horns do not exist for us, and what does not exist cannot be said to be sitting anywhere. Similarly, we cannot say that the son of a woman who never gave birth to a child, Vandhya Putra. Vandhya means a barren woman. Vandhya Putra is sitting on the ground because there is no such person. In the same way, inaction being the absence of action does not exist for it to have any location. Therefore, action cannot be the basis for inaction. Nor can that which does not exist in action be the basis for action. Therefore, the use of the locative case here is not to be taken in its usual sense. Rather, it means with reference to. With reference to action, this person is able to see inaction. And with reference to inaction, he or she can see action. In the absence of action, karma abhava, the wise see action, and in the so-called action, they see no action at all. When you perform an action, there is the notion, I perform an action, aham karomi. What is involved in this I perform an action? So what is it involved? Who is this I? What is this action that you're doing? When you say I am talking or I am walking, the talking and the walking are actions centered on what? This then is the question. When you say I walk, your legs and feet are involved in the action of walking. The mind is also involved, there having been a decision, a sankalpa, to perform the action of walking. Without a sankalpa, you do not perform a deliberate action. There is always a thought, a desire involved. Okay? So, in this process, there is always a thought, a desire involved. So, in the action of walking, the mind is involved, the legs and feet are involved, and even the eyes are involved. And when you say, I perform an action, aham karomi, I aham is also involved. So, to which aspect do you attribute the action when you say, I am talking or I am walking? Because all these factors are involved. In this process, the mind, senses, and the physical body are all involved. The physical body is called karya in Sanskrit, meaning product. And the mind and senses are called karana, meaning instrument. This assemblage of karya and karana is involved in the action that belongs to me. That is why I say, I perform this action. The I is also implied in action, I meaning Atma. The results of action belong to the doer. So it is the whole assemblage of Karya Karana Sanghata, which performs the action. The assemblage performs the action. There's not one particular thing you can point out and say this is what does the action. The results of action belong to the doer. And why do I perform this action? I perform an action for a certain result. And when the result comes, to whom does it go? Whom does it affect? It comes to me, the one who is the karta, the doer. Therefore, as the doer, I am the enjoyer. I perform this action for the sake of getting the desired result. Karma phala bhogaya aham idam karomi. In this way, we see that action involves the karya karana sanghata, the physical body, mind, sense complex, and also aham, I, the Atma. We'll just ruminate on this. Give me a minute. So when I say I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, etc., on whom is the doership and enjoyer. When I say I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, etc., on whom is the doership and enjoyership centered? It is centered on myself. The question that arises then is, is the I, the Atma, a doer or a non-doer, a karta or an akarta? If Atma is a karta, then I definitely perform action karma, which produces a result for me. This is real karma, binding karma. No action is possible without there being an agent, doer of the action, a karta. For example, when we say Rama goes, Ramaha gacchati, the going is done by Rama, the agent of the action of going. And although action is dependent on its agent, the agent is not dependent on action. So, although action is dependent on its agent, the agent is not dependent on action. This means that the agent, the doer, has a choice in terms of action. See, for that action to happen, you necessarily have to have an agent. But the agent is not dependent upon the action. Because why? He has a choice. He or she can perform an action, need not perform the action, or can perform the action differently. This independent doer, the karta, who enjoys such freedom in terms of action, is what is reflected by the first or nominative case in Sanskrit, prathama karaka. So we have prathama karaka, dvitiya karaka till up until the saptama karaka. There are a number of factors other than agency that are also connected to action. Whatever is connected to an action, because of which the action is made possible, is called karaka. Again, I repeat this. Whatever is connected to an action, because of which the action is made possible, is called karaka. There are 6 kinds of karakas. There are actually 7. The second one is actually prabodha, like Hey Rama, Hey Rama, Hey Rama, or Hey Ram. It is like invoking them or calling them. So that is not considered here as a karaka. So therefore, Swamiji says there are 6 kinds of karakas. The agent of the action being the first, or prathama karaka, as we saw above. Then there is the object of an action. When Rama goes, Ramaha gacchati. Where does he go? So the second karaka is where, or the object of an action. He goes to the forest, vanam gacchati. Forest being the object of the action of Rama's going. Thus, we have a doer and an object of doing. Karta and karma, referred to grammatically as the nominative and the accusative, first and second cases. Then how does Rama go to the forest? Does he go on foot or does he go on in a chariot? What is the means of his going? The means by which he goes on foot is the third karaka or instrumental case. So the third karaka is how. How does Rama go to the forest? So we saw the agent Rama, and then we saw where, that is the object of the doing, as well as how he does it. What is the means of his going? The means by which he goes on foot is the third karaka or instrumental case. And why does he go? What is the purpose of his going? Rama went to the forest to fulfill the words of his father. Pitruvakya Paripalanaya, giving us the fourth karaka. So the why gives you the fourth or the dative case. So we saw the agent, we saw the object, we saw also how he does it. That is the third karaka. He goes on foot. And then why? Why does he go? Is the fourth karaka. From where does he go? From which place? From the city of Ayodhya. Ayodhya, Ayodhya Nagarat. He went to the forest. So the fifth is the ablative case or the fifth karaka. Since it is also connected to the verb, the action of going. The final karaka is the locative case, as in Rama lived in the forest. Ramaha vane avasat. Here, forest is in the seventh case expressing location. Actually, the seventh case is the locative case. The second one in order is the Hey Rama, is is when you address someone. Actually, there are seven cases. So this final karaka, which is a locative case, is the seventh, the saptama vibhakti or karaka. So there are so many accompanying factors involved, related factors involved when an action is done. So the results of action belong to the doer. Not doing karma also requires a doer. Returning now to the first karaka, the karta, Shankara says that whether you say I did this action or I did not do this action, the I, the ahankara, is involved. Both the doing, pravritti, and the not doing, nivritti, are centered on ahankara, the karta. So both the doing pravritti and the not doing nivritti are centered on ahankara, the karta. Therefore, if I am the karta, I am the karta in both action as well as inaction. But if I'm not the karta, then there is no action at all for me because all action depends upon the karta. If I am someone who is not an actor, then I perform no action. Na kinchit karma karomi. The I is always free from action. It does not do any action. Atma neither does an action nor impels or prompts anything to act. Na karoti, na karayati. This is the intriguing part of it, right? The Atma, action is dependent upon the Atma. Without the I, there is no action. But Atma is not dependent upon action, and the Atma does not do any action. Na karoti, na karayati. So as long as I am a karta, I have action, I'm a doer, I also am the enjoyer. I am also a bhokta. Mistaking action for inaction and inaction for action. If Atma is neither of these, neither a simple karta nor a karayita, one who causes action to be done, how can there be any karma? And if there is no karma, why does Krishna simply not say so? Why does he talk about seeing inaction in action? Karmani akarmayah pasyet. The problem here, Shankara says, is that we superimpose kartritva on the Atma, which is really a karta, and say, I do this action or that action, when really the action belongs to the Karya Karana Sanghata. To illustrate this problem, Shankara gives an example that everyone can relate to. Let me know if you want me to repeat this. So if Atma is neither of these, neither a simple karta nor a karayita, one who causes action to be done, how can there be any karma? And if there is no karma, why does Krishna simply not say so? Why does he talk about seeing inaction in action? Karmani akarmaya pasyet. The problem here, Shankara says, is that we superimpose kartritva on the Atma, which is really a karta, and say, I do this action or that action, when really the action belongs to the Karya Karana Sanghata. To illustrate this problem, Shankara gives an example that all of us can relate to. When you are in a boat moving in a river, you see the trees on the river's bank moving in the opposite direction. Even though you are moving in one direction, the trees seem to be moving in the other, and you seem to be constant. What does this mean? The trees are not really moving at all. They are not performing any action. But in these trees that are really standing still, you see an action. Akarmani karma darshanam. This kind of seeing is called viparita darshana, erroneous sight. Such a beautiful day-to-day example Shankara picked up, right? So when you are moving in one direction, you feel, you you perceive wrongly that the trees which are actually stand still are moving in the opposite direction. called Viparita Darshana. Secondly, as long as there is this notion, I am the Karta, merely not doing any action does not make one an Akarta. Merely not doing any action does not, therefore, whenever one says, I am sitting quietly, I am not doing any action, aham tushnim asam, na kinchit karomi, this person considers himself to be a karta. Therefore, he is doing the action of not doing any action. To illustrate this, Shankara gives the following example. Suppose you are standing on the river bank and looking at the boat, which is moving away from you. Having reached a certain distance, the boat seems not to be moving at all. To you, it appears stationary. Thus, an object can also appear to be constant when it is actually moving very fast. An example of this, one not available to Shankara in his time, is a movie on a screen. Although it is a movie, a succession of rapidly moving frames, things like trees, mountains, and so on appear to us to be stationary. Here then, you see inaction in action. Karmani akarma darshanam. The trees and mountains that are shown on the movie screen are actually several frames that keep on moving at a very fast speed. So it appears to us that the mountain is stationary, trees are stationary on the screen. So like in the boat is moving away at a very fast speed. But after it reaches a certain distance, it appears to you as if it is stationary. Thus, in the world, we see karma in akarma, like the moving trees. You are moving, but you think the trees are moving. So seeing karma in akarma and akarma in karma. Like the fast moving boat, it appears as if it stands still. Or the movie screen. Actually, there is a lot of karma happening on the movie screen. But for us, it looks as if there is a tree which is standing still and the mountain is standing still. Similarly, with reference to karma and akarma themselves, there is viparita darshana, seeing what is not there. This is the crux. So, seeing what is not there. Darshana means sight, seeing, and viparita means other than what is. The self does not perform any action, and therefore there is no action. The action you see is really inaction. Inaction. In other words, there is no action in action because Atma is akarta. It is just a superimposition. It is a superimposition of the karta upon the Atma. Knowing this, the wise person performs action, but at the same time knows he does not perform it at all. Doing, the person does not do. Kurvan na karoti. Seeing, the person does not see. Pashyan na pashyati. Hearing, the person does not hear. Shrinvan na shrunoti. That typo is there, that na is not there. Similarly, smelling, one does not smell. Tasting, one does not taste. Walking, one does not walk. Talking, one does not talk. Thinking, one does not think. So basically, from the scenery, you're coming back to the seer. Because all this doing, tasting, smelling, seeing, enjoying, all that is part of the scenery. The seer, the Atma, is not the doer. Even being confused, the person is not confused. A wise person can be confused in that his or her mind can become confused with reference to a particular thing. For example, there may be confusion about the direction to be taken in order to reach a certain place. Thus, being confused, the person is not confused, does not mean that the wise do not get confused. What does all this mean? For the wise, the I, the Atma, in the statement, I am confused, remains untouched by any action because it does not perform any action. That confusion is only a flavor of the Karya Karana Sanghata, but the I, the Atma, is untouched. If a man is acting, we say he is acting, and if he is not, we say he is keeping quiet. But is there really a time when he is not doing action? Keeping quiet simply means the person does not have a job. He may not even keep quiet. He may talk a lot, eat a lot, hang around a lot, and at the same time, he says he's keeping quiet. Therefore, not doing anything is definitely an action. And for that action, there is an agent, a doer, a karta. Because people think they do action, they also think they do not do action. So first of all, there is an error. They think they do an action. They also think that they do not do an action. This is because both the action, pravritti, and the non-action, nivritti, are attributed to Atma instead of to the karta, which is superimposed, aropita, upon the Atma. In this way, Atma is taken to be the karta, and the doing or not doing of an action which is centered on that karta is mistakenly attributed to Atma. Action is dependent upon Atma. At the same time, no action is totally independent of Atma. And in Atma, there is no action whatsoever. Because people do not know this, they are under the spell of delusion, ignorance, seeing action in inaction and inaction in action. One who is able to see Atma as akarta never performs any action, even when he does an action, karma. I repeat this. One who is able to see Atma as akarta never performs any action, even when he does an action, karma. Such a person will see akarma in karma because he knows that Atma does not perform any action whatsoever. The nature of Atma. The nature of Atma, the self, is in the form of pure consciousness. The very word self implies that which does not need to be revealed to you, the self, by anything else. You require no means of knowledge, no pramana to prove your existence. That which requires no pramana, no means of knowledge, that which is self-evident is the self, Atma. And what is its nature? It is in the form of pure consciousness, knowledge as such. Because Atma is unqualified knowledge, there can be particular knowledge which is nothing but consciousness plus some qualification that appears in the form of knowledge of this or that. Because Atma is unqualified knowledge, there can be particular knowledge which is nothing but consciousness plus some qualification that appears in the form of knowledge of this or that. Knowledge as such must be there before it can be qualified. For example, for there to be pot knowledge, ghata jnana, cloth knowledge, pata jnana, man knowledge, purusha jnana, or women knowledge, stri jnana, there must be knowledge as such, unqualified by anything. This unqualified knowledge is the nature of the Atma. Knowledge as such gets seemingly qualified in the form of thought vritti. With vritti, knowledge seems to be qualified, and without vritti, it is unqualified. This unqualified knowledge is consciousness, the nature of Atma that performs no action. It is like the ocean. If you understand unqualified knowledge as the ocean, when it takes a form, it has a qualification that we call a wave, a small wave or a big wave. That is like the vritti. This unqualified knowledge is consciousness, the nature of Atma that performs no action. Why do we say that Atma performs no action? One reason is that action implies motion or some change. Try to think of an action without motion, without change. Any motion, any change from one condition to another, from one form to another, is action. Even a chemical reaction is an action. But can we say that Atma, whose nature is consciousness, is subject to action? Consciousness is not subject to motion because, being all pervasive, it is not located at one point for it to move to another point. Consciousness does not move within itself either, nor does it have any part to undergo any change. Consciousness not being an assemblage of things. Only that which is put together can undergo change. Things that are put together will naturally fall apart without anything being done. It is their nature to fall apart, which is also an action. Even a car that is kept unused for 25 years will undergo some change, and a Rolls Royce is no exception. Whether the car is running or not running, it is subject to change simply because it was put together. Samha Tattvat. There is always entropy for things that are put together. Same thing with the human body, Stula Sharira. It disintegrates, right? So we'll stop here today and we'll continue tomorrow. We'll do some manana and wishing everybody a very happy birthday today. Today is Gurudev's 70th birthday and there is Sudarshana Homa happening. So Loveline has actually mentioned, can you live stream it? Let me see if I can live stream it. So whoever wants to watch can watch. Otherwise, I'll just post the link. It's on YouTube. You can watch it yourself. Huh? I'll post this on the YouTube, on the group. Yeah. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.